How functional medicine has been dealing with gut health for many years. It always was in naturopathic medicine and holistic medicine, as well as integrative medicine, that you had to start with the gut first. And in fact, that goes back many years, even starting with Hippocrates, that spoke about starting with the gut first. So, what does functional medicine do when it's dealing with healing the gut and helping this gut microbiome? I'm sure many of you are aware of a lot of the research on the gut and the bacteria in the gut, and many people are taking probiotics, and that's been helpful so far. But the more that we learn about the gut microbiome, the more that we see it's much more than the typical strains put in those supplements like lactobacillus and bifidus. So we want to not limit ourselves when it comes to our health. So, what is it that functional medicine does with gut health? And why is the gut so important to really get it right? Because according to a lot of the science, latest research is the gut bacteria produce metabolites. They send signals and messages, and these messages help to heal our body. They provide healing to our intestines. Now they're showing that butyrate, one of the other chemical messengers, help with neurotrophic factor for the brain, which is to improving brain function. So we have the gut brain connection. We see a bacteria such as Akkermansia, which is so important. Again, it's not bifidus and lactobacillus only. So Akkermansia is something that heals the gut because they're mucus-loving bacteria, and that's something that heals the intestinal lining. So it's important to really know that these keystone species are there in the gut. But when we look at the gut, we see that many things that we do, just like taking these anti inflammatory, pain relieving agents, many of them are over the counter, such as ibuprofen, they disturb the gut lining. Also, taking antacids, some medications like protein pump inhibitors or H2 blockers, they're known as, also can lower the acidity, and then other bacteria tend to grow in a low acid environment, such as H. pylori and other very important bacteria that's important to test for and to get it right. Is it the more virulent, the more dangerous kind of H. pylori? Because we all have H. pylori in our gut naturally, but at very controlled and minimal amounts. What we want to know is if it's overgrown, and is it the more virulent, the more weaponized, the more destructive type of H. pylori. That's very important, and that's going to really dictate how it's going to be approached, both in integrative medicine and regular medicine. But what's important to know about the gut is many things we do can disturb the gut lining and can really disturb the balance of our gut bacteria, including not eating a lot of fermented foods. In the past, a lot of our foods were jarred and canned, and they had this friendly bacteria called Lactobacillus plantarum, which is a very important lactobacillus species, and that came from canning and fermenting vegetables and fruits. And different drinks were fermented, such as wines and beers. They had really beneficial properties. We don't see that so much today because of the heavy pasteurization with the high heat that destroys a lot of these important bacteria. So we don't get a lot of this good bacteria. A lot of us are being too sterile. We don't go out to farms. We don't go out to state parks. We don't get our feet on the ground, our bare feet. We don't get our hands in the soil. There are soil-based bacteria that have evolved with us over a millennium, and those are very beneficial as well. But there are times when we take antibiotics or other reasons where the other opportunistic bacteria that again are there in small amounts, they overgrow and they become inflammatory, such as Pseudomonas and Streptococcus aureus, which is a bacteria on the skin. But when it's overgrown in the gut, you see that there are skin issues, and there's the gut skin connection. So we want to make sure we don't have that overgrowth of inflammatory bacteria that are normally there, but in controlled amounts. Same with other bacteria that we see are autoimmune triggering, such as Citrobacter, Klebsiella, Prevotella. Those can be autoimmune triggering. They're normally there in the gut at very controlled amounts. Again, these bacteria are there, but we want to make sure that they're not overgrown. That's a key point. So We also want to make sure there's not an overgrowth of candida, which again is normally there but can be overgrown. Same with parasites and other different type of protozoa or more pathogenic bacteria that cause kind of food poisonings. Those, of course, are important as well. So it has to be a real thorough way of assessing a very good scientifically proven GI microbiome stool test. That's what's key. It's going to give you the quantity. It's going to be very accurate in detecting these keystone species that I talked about, and also these inflammatory and autoimmune stimulating type of bacteria that I spoken about. We also want to make sure that the digestive enzymes are sufficient hydrochloric acid, no reactions to foods like gluten, antibodies, reactions, the immune system, and an inflammatory response to a food is not beneficial. So we want to make sure that we're checking for that as well. And also inflammation of the intestines. This can be occurring because, again, many of us are not having a lot of good fats, the essential omega-3 fats. These are all very important. A lot of plant polyphenols, those very important plant-based nutrients that are coming from the the colors of these vegetables, blue and purple, and other plants we might have heard about, quercetin from apples and from onions, anthocyanins from blueberries, and etc. We know a lot of polyphenols, resveratrol, and these are all very, very important to help with inflammation of the gut, such as curcumin as well. So the 4R program has been instituted by functional medicine for many years, started by Dr. Jeffrey Bland. It was basically 4Rs: remove these overgrowth of bacteria or yeast or parasites, replace the digestive um, enzymes and hydrochloric acid that might have been lost during this removal process. And then the next stage, the third R, is reinoculate, which is now to bring back the many beneficial keystone species of bacteria through different types of ways of eating with food and fibers, and also different supplements that can bring back all these different beneficial keystone species, as well as learning to work with soil and other things about washing vegetables to get some of that soil-based, really important spore-based probiotics, because they are very, very important. They produce a lot of those metabolites, those signals, those messages to heal the body that I spoke about. And then the fourth R is to repair. Sometimes these bacteria and especially H. pylori destroy the gut lining, the stomach lining. We want to repair with certain mucus loving type of herbs, or mucus coating type of herbs like slippery elm, marshmallow. We use a healing amino acids in very individualized. These are all individualized protocols depending on what we find, such as glutamine, which is an important amino acid, and other healing components of the intestine. So the fourth R is to repair. And that's the 4R program. But now that we have this accurate stool test, that we know the different species, we can really approach this 4R program much more individualized and personalized. We know if it's yeast versus parasites. We know if it's an overgrowth of the autoimmune stimulating bacteria or the inflammatory bacteria. We know if there's a lack of certain keystone species I've mentioned that are important to produce these metabolites that help to nourish our brain, our gut, and they're very important for our metabolic systems, such as blood sugar, insulin, and cardiovascular health. The gut is tied into everything. So what's so important is to put it all together with a more functional medicine blood test to see where the inflammation is coming from, where that if the immune dysfunction, where is that coming from the gut? Because we know that 70% of the immune system is in the gut. And we look at these labs to see if there's an issue with histamine, like mast cell activation syndrome. It's coming from the gut. Food reactions are coming from the gut. And again, the gut skin, gut brain, and a lot of inflammation and pain sources of pain can be coming from the gut. So we really want to address the gut first in this real comprehensive functional medicine way. I hope this was educative and helpful to everyone. You feel free to comment below, to ask questions. Let me know what you think. Reach out through Messenger and check out our website. You can see it right there in the corner, www.sfihc.com. That's where you can make a 15-minute consultation or discovery call. And you can reach out to us in other ways too, through messaging and our phone number there, which is also listed. So, everyone, have a healthy and happy day.